He had 25 minutes to choose. Follow the rule and end the world, Enisa, or break the rule and save it. The Serpukhov 15 bunker is dim. The air is stale. Soviet Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov sits at the main metal console. He is the duty officer. The time is just past midnight, September 26, 1983. A loud, piercing electronic sound shatters the silence. The red alarm flashes across the primary display panel. A voice from the machine speaks. Start. Missile launch. Petrov freezes. He grips the edge of the console. The alarm repeats. The room lights shift to a harsh red. Sirens begin to howl, echoing in the concrete bunker. Junior officers leap from their stations, moving quickly toward the main display board. The computer display confirms U.S. launch detected. Petrov stares at the primary display. The satellite system, OKO, is reporting a threat. The system states high reliability. The duty shift report officer, Lieutenant Yevgrafov, shouts, "Colonel, the satellite system is reporting launch confirmation. It is a combat alert." Petrov says nothing. He watches the screen. The tension in the room is instant and absolute. Yevgrafov runs to the console. Protocol demands immediate report to command. This is the start of an attack sequence. Petrov sees a digital counter start on the screen. It tracks the estimated time of impact, 25 minutes. Petrov thinks, this is not a drill. He speaks, his voice low but cutting through the sirens. Stay at your posts. Do not report yet. Confirm system status. Yevgrafov grabs a red phone handset, the direct line to the high command. Sir, every rule demands we report now. We are out of time. Petrov pushes the phone away from Yevgrafov's hand. He looks back at the console. The computer is showing the trajectory data. The system updates its status. First missile confirmed from target USSR. Petrov feels the cold dread. The warning is real, according to the machine. The sirens continue to blare. The red light pulses. Stanislav Petrov ignores the red phone. Yevgrafov shouts over the noise. Colonel, the manual is explicit. If the OKO system reports a launch, it is an attack warning. We must follow the action protocol. Petrov pulls the primary system log toward him. He needs physical data, not flashing lights. Petrov asks, "What does the protocol state, Lieutenant?" Yevgrafov recites the rule. Upon confirmation of launch detection, the duty officer reports to the commander of the Soviet Air Defense Forces. The report is passed immediately to the Central Command. Retaliation is authorized. The sequence is clear. Report now, and the decision to launch Soviet missiles in return begins immediately. The time window for a response is narrow. Petrov thinks, my word begins the war. Another officer, Major Semyonov, reports from the auxiliary console. Colonel, the system is showing the trajectory is unambiguous. We are running out of time to initiate our counterstrike capability. Petrov demands, check the ground-based radar. Do they confirm an inbound object? Use the secondary channel. Semyonov reports the ground radar is not yet confirming. The missiles are still below the horizon for their detection range. We have only the OKO satellite confirmation. The pressure focuses entirely on Petrov. The OKO system is new. It is designed to provide maximum warning time by detecting the enemy launch plume from space. Yevgrafov grabs a backup manual. He slams it onto the desk. The system is rated high reliability. We cannot wait for radar confirmation that will come when the missiles are already overhead. Petrov looks at the red phone. He knows his immediate duty, report the attack. He thinks to follow the rule is to launch the weapons. He keeps his hand away from the receiver. He must find another reason to wait. The console screen updates. The flashing red warning changes its numerical display. Petrov stares at the data. He points at the screen. Lieutenant, confirm that reading. Yevgrafov leans in, his breathing ragged. The display now shows 5 missiles detected, 5 separate launches confirmed by OKO. Major Semyonov reports 5 incoming trajectories confirmed. No change in the target, Central Soviet Union. Petrov walks slowly toward the display board. The sirens continue, but the focus shifts to the strange number. Petrov says, 5 missiles, 5 separate launch sites. That is too few. Yevgrafov says, sir, 5 missiles from a first strike submarine or a limited base is still an attack. It is sufficient cause for immediate and total retaliation. Petrov shakes his head. A real decisive first strike attack would not use 5 missiles. It would use hundreds. It would saturate our defenses. It would be an overwhelming, massive strike designed for total destruction. He thinks the failure of the system is the only logical explanation for this number. He turns to the communication console. He orders, establish communications with the early warning scientists. Ask them about system anomalies immediately. Semyonov argues, we do not have time for theoretical discussion, Colonel. The time to impact clock shows 20 minutes. We must follow the established protocol for limited confirmed strike. Petrov holds up his hand. The data is contradictory. The system reports absolute certainty, but the number of missiles suggests absolute irrationality on the part of the enemy. He looks at the primary launch button on the metal console. The button is protected by a clear plastic cover. Petrov says if we launch our counterstrike based on a report of 5 missiles and the rest of their arsenal remains untouched, we begin a global war based on a statistical error. He steps back from the console. The siren sound seems distant now. The logic of the contradiction is the only anchor. The red phone rings. It is the direct line from the central command bunker. Petrov does not move to answer it. Yevgrafov grabs the receiver and holds it out. Colonel, it is the general. He demands an immediate status report. We must confirm the launch or deny it. Petrov says, tell the general the system is operating. Tell him we are waiting for visual confirmation. Yevgrafov speaks into the phone, his voice shaking. Sir, the duty officer reports system operations normal. We are confirming the data, requesting 2 more minutes for secondary source confirmation. He slams the receiver down. He threatened to report me for insubordination, Colonel. He demanded to know if the United States has launched. Petrov knows the consequence of this delay. He is personally delaying the Soviet war machine. Petrov thinks, I am alone in this decision. Another phone rings. This is the line from the scientists. Petrov grabs that receiver. This is Petrov. What is the status of the OCO system? The voice on the other end is strained. Colonel, we cannot confirm a fault. The system shows green lights across all self-diagnostic checks. The initial launch report is holding high reliability. Petrov disconnects. The scientific side confirms the technical integrity of the attack warning. Only the number 5 remains the source of doubt. Petrov looks at the display. 15 minutes to impact. Semyonov reports, Colonel, the ground radar is showing nothing, but the system states the trajectory is too high for current detection. The satellite is the supreme source of truth. The general calls back on the red phone. The ringing is relentless, demanding the confirmation. Petrov speaks, his voice gaining finality. The system is flawed. The 5 missiles are an error. No one launches a first strike with only 5 weapons. I am declaring this a false alarm. He grabs the red phone receiver, but before answering, he looks at his subordinates. His final instruction is absolute. Petrov says, do not report an attack. Report a system test error. I take full responsibility. He raises the receiver to his mouth. Stanislav Petrov speaks into the red phone receiver. The general's voice is a shout on the other end. Petrov states, Comrade General, the duty officer reports the situation. The OCO system has generated a false alarm. There is no attack. The general shouts into the line, his voice audible across the room. Petrov, you are reporting a negative when the display confirms a launch? What is your reasoning for breaking absolute protocol? Petrov replies, calm and precise. The logic is contradictory, General. The system shows 5 missiles. A confirmed first strike would be hundreds. This points to a system malfunction. The general demands, are you prepared to face the consequences if you are wrong? Are you prepared to take personal responsibility for delaying the retaliation order? Petrov holds the receiver tight. He closes his eyes briefly. Petrov says, I am prepared to face the consequences. The evidence for a limited, overwhelming strike is insufficient. I repeat, false alarm. He listens to the general's final order. Maintain absolute alert. Initiate full investigation into the system error immediately. Petrov hangs up the red phone. The silence in the bunker is sudden and profound. The general accepted the judgment. Yevgrafov stands motionless. Colonel, if you are incorrect, We have forfeited our ability to retaliate. Petrov walks to the display. 10 minutes to impact. Petrov thinks, we now wait for the sky to remain empty. He looks at the consoles. The red light is still flashing. The system insists the missiles are still incoming. The logic of the machine contradicts the logic of the man. The fate of the world now rests on the statistical probability of nuclear strategy, not on the electronic signals. The time to impact counter clicks down on the console. Stanislav Petrov watches the numbers fall. The red light continues to flash, insisting the nuclear missiles are inbound. The atmosphere in the bunker is heavy with dread. Officers remain frozen at their posts, waiting for the ground radar to confirm the initial satellite warning. Petrov walks over to the map display, which shows the projected impact zones across Soviet territory. He stares at the empty space where the missiles should be detected. Petrov asks Major Semyonov, any change on the ground-based radar? Are they picking up any high-altitude objects? So Semyonov reports, nothing, Colonel. The radar grid is clear. No inbound hostile targets detected. 5 minutes to impact. Yevgrafov says, the ground radar is unreliable at extended ranges, Colonel. The satellite signal is direct proof. We must prepare for impact. Petrov looks at Yevgrafov. The system is programmed to assume a threat. The system does not understand diplomacy or irrationality. The radar reports reality. The clock continues. 3 minutes to impact. A new signal suddenly appears on the main screen. The red alarm stops. The lights in the bunker return to a dim, normal state. The siren cuts off instantly, leaving a profound, ringing silence. The voice from the machine speaks. System anomaly. No launch detected. Petrov leans his hands on the console. He closes his eyes. The tension leaves his body in a visible slump. Semyonov reports, his voice barely a whisper, Colonel, the ground observation network is confirming clear skies. The system has registered an error. There is no attack. Petrov looks at the confirmation. He had gambled the entire Soviet retaliatory capability and the world on a statistical hunch. He won the gamble. He looks at Yevgrafov. The cause of the malfunction must be determined. The war did not start today. The immediate crisis is over. The sun is rising outside the bunker. Stanislav Petrov writes the final full report on the event. The military command is swift to arrive. The investigation team, led by General Votintsev, enters the room. Votintsev addresses Petrov directly, his voice severe. Colonel, you violated the primary action protocol. You failed to report a clear, confirmed attack warning from the OCO system. Petrov hands over his final report. General, I chose to classify the event as a false alarm due to the small number of missiles reported. 5 missiles is not consistent with a first strike. Votintsev throws the report onto the table. You broke the rules. The rules are designed to protect the state. You took it upon yourself to override the highest technological warning system. Another officer in the investigation team demands, the system failed to work reliably. Your inaction exposed a critical flaw in the entire defense network. Why did you not follow the rules and shift the responsibility to the higher command? Petrov replies, the higher command would have faced only one choice based on my report, retaliate. I assumed the personal risk to prevent a catastrophic error based on flawed input. Votintsev points to the console. You saved the state from a mistake, but you are not a hero, Colonel. You are a subordinate who disobeyed standing orders. The investigation concludes that the false alarm was caused by a rare alignment of sunlight on the satellite's sensors, creating a mistaken light reflection that the computer interpreted as a launch plume. The system was flawed. Petrov is not rewarded for saving the world. He is interrogated, criticized, and officially reprimanded for the failure to log the event immediately and for creating confusion. Votintsev gives the final official judgment. This incident exposes a severe lack of adherence to military procedure. You will be transferred out of the command position immediately. Petrov accepts the verdict. He walks away from the metal console, leaving the silent room. Stanislav Petrov leaves the military without public recognition for the event of September 26, 1983. The incident is classified, the system flaw quietly fixed. He lives a quiet, private life. Years later, after the Soviet Union dissolves, the details of the incident are declassified and leak into the historical record. A journalist asked Petrov about the night and the moral choice he made. Petrov states simply, "I was just doing my job. I was at the right place at the right time. I looked at the data and I saw the problem." The journalist presses, "You prevented a global nuclear war. You risked everything." Petrov says, "There was no heroic choice. The rule was clear, but the data was not. I was trained to look for patterns. 5 missiles is not a pattern for total war." Historians confirm the sequence. Petrov's personal decision to classify the alert as false prevented the immediate chain of Soviet command from launching a retaliatory strike. The United States was completely unaware of the near catastrophe. Petrov reflects on the night years later. Petrov thinks the failure of the machine was the machine's great honesty. His final public statement on the matter is quiet and decisive. The world did not end that day because someone decided that the logic of peace must outweigh the logic of procedure. The story becomes a global historical lesson. The man who refused to press the button, the man who chose restraint over protocol, the man who chose doubt over destruction. The simple, unheroic action of a single duty officer remains the only thing that stood between humanity and global war. Sometimes the logic of one man is the only thing that saves the world.